The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 16th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
From that time on, after Peter confessed that Jesus was the Messiah, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father. Then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here that will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The Gospel of the Lord. You may be seated. So, how many of you know the story inspired by the movie Cool Runnings? Okay. For those of you who don't know it, Cool Runnings is the story of the Jamaican bobsled team who competed in the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. So, 4 guys who have never seen snow or ice before are now competing in a winter sport against some of the best in the world, with the help of a coach who was a disgraced former bobsledder himself. Now, no one expected them to do much of anything. They weren't even expected to qualify. They were put into a box. Other people placed expectations on the Jamaican team using their idea of what a good bobsled team looks like, acts like, where they're from. One would expect a good bobsled team to come from Russia, from Norway, from Sweden. One of those places that has snow and ice on a regular basis so that we can train. There's a scene in the movie just after the team has had, it's like the first run of the Olympics. They have qualified. They're trying to take it seriously. And their first competitive run is a disaster. They barely make it across the finish line. They barely qualify for the second day. And Doris, who's the captain of the team, tries to give them this pep talk. When the Swiss face a setback, they do this. And one of his teammates looks at him and goes, "We aren't Swiss." And it was acting like the Swiss team that got our heads all messed up in the first place. Sanka, his teammate, looks at Doris and goes, "If we look Jamaican, walk Jamaican, talk Jamaican, and is Jamaican, then we better bobsled Jamaican." In other words, they can't achieve their best while trying to fit into the box that others have constructed of what a successful bobsled team looks like. So this is what Peter is doing in the first part of our gospel lesson today. He is trying to put Jesus in a box. He's trying to place all of his expectations of what the Messiah will look like and what the Messiah will do on Jesus. Peter, and probably the other disciples as well, but they don't speak up like Peter does. Expect the Messiah to come in and wipe out Rome. The Messiah will come in leading an army who will conquer Rome and drive the Romans out of Jerusalem. That is their expectation. The Messiah will be a military leader. Their expectations of the Messiah are not that he will be tried and executed by the Roman government after being handed over to the Romans by the Jewish leaders. The Messiah isn't supposed to be weak like that. It's not supposed to happen like that. We too can be guilty of trying to put Jesus in a box. We want to treat Jesus like a cosmic vending machine, to have his only job be answering our prayers on demand the way we want them to be answered. Because I am sure there were plenty of people who prayed that Hurricane Idalia would miss them. The wildfires out in Hawaii and Maui would miss them, But the hurricane still hit. The fires still burned. Their prayers weren't answered the way they had wanted. But the death toll of Idalia, when I read this morning, was 2 people. So, well, it is said that 2 people died. The majority of the people made it through Hurricane Idalia. So while hurricane still hit, they were safe. It wasn't exactly what they wanted, but their prayers were answered. The good news is that Jesus does not hold our expectations of him against us, nor does he hold Peter's expectations against him. In the next chapter of our gospel, Peter is still invited to see the transfiguration. Peter is still part of Jesus' inner circle of disciples. After rebuking Peter, Jesus uses Peter's outburst as a teaching moment. The second part of our gospel is Jesus teaching the disciples about the divine things that they should have their minds on. In order to follow Jesus, we have to deny ourselves and take up our cross and follow him. Now, when I talk about taking up our cross, I need to make something very clear, because this verse has been used to keep people in unhealthy relationships. The cross that you have to bear is not an abusive relationship. That is not what Jesus wants for you. So then how does one deny oneself and take up their cross? For that, look at our reading from Romans. There's a whole list that Carla read for us of how we follow Jesus. The marks of a true Christian is what the title of it is in my Bible. A few of them are: love one another with mutual affection, persevere in prayer, and bless those who persecute you. Now, some of these seem pretty easy and straightforward. Love one another. Great. I can do that. Right? But wait. Loving one another. Does that mean I have to love the person in the grocery store who yells at me because I accidentally got in their way? Or does that mean I have to love the person who took one look at me in my clerical collar and they turned around and walked the other direction without saying anything? Spoiler alert, it does. And I know it's not always easy to love the people that you disagree with, the people who judge you for who they think you are. And it seems nowadays that it goes against our culture to want good things to happen to the people that we don't like. That's why it's called cross-bearing. It's not easy to love those who don't seem to love us. Jesus knows that. Jesus had to practice that himself in his final days when he prayed to God to forgive the people who had him crucified. He still fed Judas at the Last Supper, even though he knew Judas was going to betray him. Just like he still feeds us at the communion rail, even though he knows we have messed up and will continue to mess up. Jesus knows that we won't always get this cross-bearing thing right all of the time. But he still comes to us in the waters of baptism and the bread and wine at communion. And for that we say thanks be to God. Amen.